Hello, my name is Marisa Vieira and I work as Principal Consultant at Prey. Today I have the pleasure to present you with a very nice project that we're about to conclude with Procter Gamble, where circularity and life cycle metrics are used to inform decision-making in the context of circular models for consumer goods. The specific circular model I'm talking about is the Loop initiative. Loop is a global reuse platform developed by TerraCycle along with a consortium of leading brands, retailers, and NGOs. Brands work with Loop to develop reusable versions of their products, and retailers embed Loop into their digital and physical stores, allowing consumers to enjoy breakthrough design with a convenient reuse ecosystem. For consumers, there is no need to wash, sort, or fill themselves. Instead, they simply return any used Loop package to any participating retailer, online or in store, and the system does the rest. Here you can see how it works. A brand sells a Loop product to a retailer or via Loop's e-commerce platform. Then the retailer sells the consumer to the consumer through their digital and physical stores, or again through Loop's e-com platform. The consumer then enjoys the product and returns the empty container to Loop via any participating retailer or via e-com pickup. Then Loop receives and cleans the empty container and sends the clean container to be refilled and resold. Then it starts the cycle once again with the reusable packaging unit. Since a container is designed to go through several cycles, the costs from additional packaging are saved for every reuse cycle. Here you can read two quotes from P&G staff who are involved in the Loop project. The top quote is from P&G's Loop program leader, Vanessa Catherine. She says, "We're proud to partner with Loop as the first consumer goods company to be part of this program and with a large range of brands as we work to accelerate sustainable innovation and explore new circular solutions that consumers love." The bottom quote you have was from our direct customer, Bram Kedelier, and here he essentially expresses the motivation to do the LCA. P&G's ambition is to co-design with Loop a scalable reuse supply chain which has a lower environmental footprint than traditional brick and mortar and e-commerce. So what were the main objectives of the LCA study? The first one was to identify the environmental hotspots of the Loop model based on Loop's e-commerce testing platform. The second one was to find the conditions for Loop to be a successful story compared to traditional e-com and brick-and-mortar alternatives, and thereby informing the future scaled design in a retail in-store model. Since this study aimed at assessing a circular model, we have looked at both material circularity as well as life cycle assessment metrics next to each other. Now zooming into what we've studied. Ariel taps in Paris and Pantene bottles in New York. For both products and regions, we analyzed Loop with reusable packaging and e-commerce and brick and mortar with single-use packaging. As you can imagine, the trade-offs are more packaging materials and waste for e-com and brick and mortar versus more transport and cleaning with Loop. Now let me show some results for the first objective. So to identify the key drivers of the environmental impact of Loop. We can see that the last mile delivery, so the final transport leg to consumer, accounts for the largest share of the impacts, both for Ariel as well as for Pantene. We see other transportation legs with high impact for both products, and for Ariel, the packaging accounts for 9% of the impact. For Pantene, the cleaning accounts for 18% of the impact. Cleaning has a much larger relative contribution in the US compared to France because the French electricity mix has a high share of nuclear energy, which has low greenhouse gas emissions compared to the electricity mix in the US. So these are results for climate change, but we made similar analysis for other impact categories, and the main findings were the same. And what we can conclude by these findings is that we cannot generalize the results of one LCA for a specific brand and region to other brands and regions. This is specific to each, and therefore it needs to be assessed individually. So summarizing, the key drivers for Loop were the number of reuse cycles, the transportation, with, again, different contribution depending on the specific and on the brand and region we assessed, and the cleaning. And therefore, P&G's circular design model had three main elements. One, the supply chain design to optimize the transportation. Two, the packaging design to extend the lifetime and reduce the impact of the packaging materials selected. And three, the cleaning design. With LCA, we calculated every configuration being considered by P&G and Loop, and P&G would take this insight for optimizing the different design variables. Now let's look into the second objective of the study, namely to find the conditions for it to be true that Loop would be a successful story compared to the e-com and brick-and-mortar alternatives. For this purpose, we tested individual key drivers with scenario analysis to understand how each variable would affect the environmental performance of the model. Here you can see how the number of reuse cycles affects the carbon footprint of Loop versus e-com and brick and mortar. And for this specific variable, we found already a break-even point at 3 cycles. Here you can see another example, this time for the top key driver identified in the Loop e-com testing platform, so the last mile delivery. We calculated the results of Loop for distances varying from 0 to 200 kilometers, and we find a break-even point for e-com between 150 and 175 kilometers, and for brick and mortar between 50 and 175 kilometers. But let me also say that what is modeled in green in the Loop is the Loop e-com system, and therefore the apple-to-apple comparison with the traditional e-com. So we have seen that some variables showed a break-even point like we see it here, but others didn't. And this is an ongoing journey with several iterations and new calculations to understand the impact of new design configurations. So knowing that this partnership of Loop and P&G is intended to last and to be scaled up in the future, we also wanted to empower P&G to calculate future scenarios independently. And for that reason, we created a Loop project in SimaPro's online scenario tool, which is called Share. And now P&G can calculate additional scenarios on basis of various variables and to compare those results with the baseline scenarios. So here you see the 3 baseline scenarios of Ariel for Loop, e-com, and brick and mortar. You can also see here what are some of the key variables that they will be able to play with. And here you already see a virtual 4th scenario. And here you can see plotted those results, and P&G can add as many as they want to. So coming to the conclusion, circularity is an important ambition and something that all companies should pursue. That said, a circular supply chain is not environmentally superior by default, but it can be if well understood and well managed. LCA metrics are continuously helping P&G and Loop in the journey to find an optimal circular design model by providing results in various iterations of different circular model configurations, thereby informing decision-making. We've also seen that individual conditions are important to calculate, and this is why we've empowered P&G to calculate future scenarios in SimaPro's online tool, Share. I'd like to thank P&G for their trust and collaboration in this super interesting project, and we thank TerraCycle for the cooperation in providing data for their operations. I would also like to acknowledge the big contribution to the success of this project of my colleague Elsa Valencia Martinez and from Bram Ketelier and Joost de Walle from P&G. And now I would like to thank you all for listening and watching, and I hope I'll be able to address your questions online.